Alright, AP Human Geography classes, here's our last video for industry. Why are location factors changing? And one could assume a number of things here. Obviously, we're going from location of industry, from MDCs to LDCs, for a number of reasons. Let's talk about it. Alright, let's start with MDCs. What's the biggest reason why companies are moving from MDCs to LDCs? Well, it's a site factor, labor. And the whole purpose is to minimize labor, specifically move to LDCs for lower wages. Now in the United States, we do have interregional shifts, specifically going from the north and northeast to the south and west. And here's the reason why. The south and west now have improved infrastructure than ever before, and they also have lower taxes and lower wages in other northeastern states. In Europe, we see the same thing, except that government is actually stressing that companies move to economically distressed areas, therefore increasing the economy in those areas and their standard of living. All right, let's focus on USA real quick and why industries have shifted to the south. Well, companies were initially attracted by lower wages than in the Northeast. Southern states also enacted something called the right to work laws, which basically required factories to have an open shop policy and not a closed shop policy, which meant that workers did not have to join a union and pay union dues. If you look at the map on your right here, these are all the states that have right to work laws, and the gray ones are the ones that do not. Obviously, New Jersey does not have that. Now, why is this an advantage for employers, or why did it attract them? Well, it basically meant that employers have more of a collective bargaining or more of a say, let's say, than employees that band together in a union. And some examples of industry that have moved more south or west are steel, textiles, tobacco's been there, and furniture companies. Let's talk about Europe and their interregional shifts. Government has encouraged companies to move to two specific regions. One is called the convergence region, which is in Eastern and Southern European countries. Here, there's less skilled workers and thus cheaper labor. And some countries include Hungary, Poland, and the Czech Republic. There's another region called the competitive and employment region, and this is where Western European traditional industrial areas were, and they want to get more industry back to these areas, such as Spain and Germany. All right, let's talk about the international scene right now. Interesting fact, in 1970, half of the world's industry was located in Europe and a third of it in North America. Today, they each represent 25% of industry. So then, where is industry going? Well, to these three locations. East Asia, which includes China, Japan, and South Korea, powerhouse countries. This is one of the largest production areas due to its cheap labor and labor capacity. Also, industry is moving to South Asia, specifically India. This is actually one of the fastest growing economies in the world, and it's dominated heavily by its textile industry. And last but not least is Latin America. This is the nearest low-wage region to the United States, and thus many United States companies have moved their base of operations, specific manufacturing obviously, into something called maquiladora plants, and these are U.S.-owned factories near the border of Mexico. Obviously, cheaper labor in Mexico, and then lower transportation costs the closer you are to the border. All right, companies also do something called outsourcing. We talked a little bit about this in class, whether or not this is good or bad. And this is when companies use LDCs for lower skilled portions of production. And then what they do is sometimes, not always, depends on the industry, then they ship it back to MDCs where highly skilled workers finish the job. This process of going from lower skilled workers to higher skilled workers is known as the New International Division of Labor. And what's the purpose, therefore, of outsourcing? Well, it's to pay low-wage workers and LDCs to do the same thing that workers and MDCs could, and transport goods across the world. This is still profitable for many, many companies despite this long transportation process. All right, so why should industries remain in MDCs? Because we still have tons of industries in MDCs, and here are two reasons why. One is the availability of skilled labor. Workers may need to complete multiple tasks instead of the one repetitive one as a traditional industry would do, and one of these examples is computer manufacturing. Obviously, computers are everywhere, and so computer manufacturing is very important that a worker may be required to do several different skills. Another reason why industry should remain in MDCs is proximity to market. It depends on the industry, but creating a just-in-time delivery system like we talked about when we talked about cars, this is when ordering parts or manufacturing items is done when the customer or the producer actually needs that item. And this greatly has increased now, this process, due to technology of production. We can produce things faster and quicker, and transportation methods overall, obviously shipping it from, let's say, one side of the country to another. And this also greatly reduces wasteful inventory space. There's no reason for it if we just make products for when people order them or when companies order them. All right, guys, that was it. We'll talk much more about this in class. See you then.